What's up, everybody? On today's show, ESPN has a list out of the 25 most important players in the 2023 college football playoff race. And a ton of SEC guys made the list. We'll run through those. More updates from across SEC fall camps. We'll get you caught up on the latest. And we preview Kentucky football with Nick Roush of Kentucky Sports Radio. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Reminder to check out our friends at LinkedIn Jobs these days. Every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs is helping you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, before we go into our fall camp stuff, I did want to jump into this story up at ESPN, their list of the 25 most important players in the 2023 college football playoff race, written by Bill Connolly. And really enjoy a lot of the stuff Bill Connolly's written over the years. He gets deep into the numbers and uses that to justify a lot of his opinions and reasoning on stuff. So let's run through it. Some names of note. Now, first off, he's not in the SEC anymore, but he's worth mentioning. He's got Bo Nix at number 24, the former Auburn quarterback, now at Oregon. He says, Bo Nix very well could factor into this. And you think about it. If Oregon runs the table, certainly they're going to make the playoff. If they go, say, like 10-2, 11-1, win the Pac-12, certainly could be in the discussion to make the college football playoff, albeit, no two-loss team has ever made it, but could be in the conversation if they go 11-1, win the Pac-12. So Bo Nix there. Coming at number 23, a very interesting one, Dallas Turner at Alabama. And here's what Connolly says. He says the bar for star power is high in Tuscaloosa, and it looked like Turner was well on his way as a true freshman. You remember 2 years ago he had the 8.5 sacks, but last year he and Will Anderson, their production kind of dropped off a little bit. His sack rate fell from 4.7% to 1.4%. And his sack total from 8.5 down to just 4. But he brought up, with Bryce Young gone, Will Anderson gone, Alabama's looking for star power. They need superstars, and Dallas Turner has that potential. He could be that guy. So just an interesting name to keep an eye on there in Alabama. Of course, still, Alabama has to go 11-1, 12-0, win the SEC, or maybe if not win the SEC, go undefeated, lose the Georgia SEC title game. They still get in. Something like that has to happen, but Dallas Turner would certainly have to be one of those guys that has a big year on that defense for Alabama for it to happen. All right, let's get into some of the other names that made this list from across the SEC. Next up, number 21, they've got Brock Bowers, tight end at Georgia. Obviously, look, one of Georgia's best offensive weapons, scored on passes of 73 and 78 yards last year, also scored on a 75-yard run. If Georgia's having a great year, it means Brock Bowers having a great year, probably undefeated, and Brock Bowers certainly could be a big part of why Georgia makes the college football playoff. The problem is Georgia's just so loaded at every spot. It feels like Brock Bowers could be, average like 700 yards and 6 touchdowns, and Georgia still make the playoff. But he's going to be a big focal piece of this offense. They're going to give him the ball a ton. Best tight end in the country. So probably a good case there made for Brock Bowers being one of those players. Now here's where Bill Connolly gets into a little bit of a specific category. He says, spoiler quarterbacks. And he's got several guys from the SEC in here. Coming at number 20 on the list, he's got KJ Jefferson. He says at 6'3", 246 pounds, Jefferson is one of college football's most imposing and physical quarterbacks. 2 seasons as a starter, he's thrown for 5,300 yards, 45 touchdowns, rushing 1,300 yards, 15 more scores, and he'll be working with a new OC in Dan Enos. Nearly everyone on that defense, or rather he brings up that defense was so rough last year. Nearly everyone put up stats on the defense. The defense is going to have to be better. But if KJ Jefferson can be special, Arkansas could be in that conversation of competing for the SEC West. And as we know, if you're competing in the East or the West and you make it to Atlanta, you're in the college football playoff conversation. Coming in at number 19, they've got Spencer Rattler in here. Here's what Bill Connolly says. 3 years into the Spencer Rattler experience, we still don't really know what we're looking at. When the Cannon Arm Senior is good, he's unbelievable. Just ask Tennessee last year. Ask Clemson. But against Georgia, Missouri, and Florida last year, teams with great, very good, and merely decent defenses, he went for 51 for 81 for 434 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks, and 7 sacks. South Carolina plays Georgia, Tennessee, and Clemson this year. And if Rattler ever establishes a genuinely consistent run of form, the Gamecocks will have a solid say in who makes the college football playoff. Again, that's a case where maybe you say Georgia runs the table, South Carolina loses to them, but South Carolina beats everybody else. And, maybe they get in as an at-large, 11-1 type team, that sort of thing. And the other one he puts in here as well from the SEC, number 18, he's got Connor Wegman from A&M. He says, it wouldn't be a most improved players list without an appearance from Texas A&M's quarterback at choice. He said, granted, most of the time they are further up this list, just as A&M is further up the contenders list. He says the Aggies began both 2021 and 2022 in the preseason AP top 10 and finished both seasons unranked, going a combined 13 and 11. But to try to fix this, Bobby Petrino has come in, and with Connor Wegman and a dynamite receiving core, Anai Smith, Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad, Petrino has got a lot of weapons to work with. Wegman played his best game in his last game last season, an upset of LSU. We're going to see if Petrino can kind of lump the balls of clay he's got here and make it work. But he lists Connor Wegman in this category of spoiler quarterbacks, ranked number 18 in terms of a guy who could have a factor in his team possibly making the college football playoff. Kind of same thing with A&M. I look at it as maybe Alabama goes undefeated, or LSU for that matter, and A&M is 11-1. They don't win the West, but they're an at-large team. Could make a case for that. All right, other candidates, Bill Connolly, he didn't rank them, but he said other guys that could fall in this category. Brady Cook at Mizzou, whoever the Ole Miss quarterback is, could be Jackson Dart. Graham Mertz at Florida, and Peyton Thorne at Auburn. Again, if any of those guys has a truly special year, and it have to be special, that means that their team could potentially be 10-11 wins in the college football playoff discussion. All right. Down the list, he lists a group of potential stars in need of a breakthrough. At number 17, he's got Alabama wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks. He said after an all-time run of receiver talent, Alabama found itself with a real transitional receiving core last year. And you think about it, just go back to 2018. Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith in 2019, Devontae Smith in 2020, Jamison Williams in 2021. Put John Mechie with him. Jermaine Burton, even last year, just 677 yards. That's compared to Jamison Williams, who had 1,500 yards the year prior. Devontae Smith had 1,800 yards a year earlier when he won the Heisman. He says with Bryce Young gone and Bama looking for a quarterback, the new starter of choice will need more upside at wide receiver. And while Jermaine Burton was last year's receiving leader, it was Ja'Cory Brooks who likely had the most potential. He's got the pedigree for a huge breakout year, but it needs to come immediately. And that's an interesting one because Dallas Turner can only do so much on defense. I feel like with Alabama, we're too focused on the quarterback and not focused enough on who are the receivers. Who's Ja'Cory Brooks? Can he be that guy? Can he be that superstar? Are we going to be talking about the end of this year, Ja'Cory Brooks is in the same category as Jameson Williams, Devontae Smith, and Jerry Jeudy? If we are, it means Alabama's undefeated or one loss and they're in the college football playoff. So I agree with Bill Connolly on Ja'Cory Brooks. If he's special, then Bama's having a special year. We'll mention Quinn Ewers here. He comes in at number 9 on the list. Obviously, the Longhorns not in the SEC yet. They will be next year, but a real chance there in another year of Steve Sarkisian's offense. Quinn Ewers in Texas, the pick flavor of the summer to win the Big 12. Certainly, if he's special this year, they could get a big win at Alabama week 2, and we could be talking about Quinn Ewers, in Texas in the playoff. All right, other SEC guys. He's got Jaden Daniels at number 8. He says Daniels is ungovernable. That's what he wrote about him when he was at Arizona State and then transferred to LSU. He said within Mike Denbrock's offense, Daniels led an offense that ranked 6th in success rate last year and grabbed an unexpected SEC West title. Tigers defied all expectations last year, but said expectations were low. LSU will start this year as a borderline top 5, top 10 team, and Daniels might still need to prove. He's got one more gear as a passer. Air it out. Show those big plays. LSU was 6-0 when Jane Daniels averaged at least 7 yards per drop back last season, but only 4-4 when he didn't. Can Jaden Daniels and his pass catchers like Malik Neighbors, Mason Taylor take it to the next level? If they can, again, LSU is going to be undefeated or one loss and in the college football playoff discussion. All right, a few other ones here. He lists at the top of his list new starting quarterbacks for potential contenders. He's got number 5. It's the list of Tyler Buchner, Jalen Milroe, or Ty Simpson. He says it was certainly a red flag that after spring practice, Jalen Milroe going up against Ty Simpson, Nick Saban and Tommy Reese went to the transfer portal and brought in Tyler Buchner. He said, we know Milroe is incredibly mobile. We know Buchner has massive upside, and we know Simpson has both mobility and a big arm. We don't know who the best option is for Alabama yet. Do Saban or Reese? That's what we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. If whoever wins that job, and I keep saying this, I think right now I'm feeling maybe Jalen Milroe could be the guy. If Jalen Milroe is the starting quarterback for Alabama, he can be very special. He's gifted runner. If he makes some better throws, cuts out the mistakes, he's going to be very good and probably be in the Heisman conversation because that's what good Alabama quarterbacks have been in recent years. But he's got to be special, whoever that starting quarterback is for Alabama. Coming in number 3, he's got Carson Beck on this list, and I've talked about it many times here. I'm a big buyer in Carson Beck. I think he's got better talent, just pure talent, than Stetson Bennett. Now, he's not a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett right now. Bennett was absolutely ridiculous towards the end of, really all last year. And here's what Connolly writes. He said, Carson Beck waited his turn behind Bennett, throwing 58 passes in mount-up duty. He showed discernible improvement between completion rate, yards per drop back, but a lot of that was in garbage time. Well, he and new OC Mike Bobo formed the tandem that Bennett and Todd Monken had last year. Georgia will roll through much of this year, but Bennett still had to come through in key moments. If Carson Beck does that, we're going to be talking about him being a big reason why Georgia is in the college football playoff. And then lastly, Connolly lists new starting quarterbacks for potential contenders with a potential game-changing leap and shots at lots of contenders. At number 2, he's got the Penn State quarterback Drew Allar. We won't touch on him, but we will touch on his number 1 guy. And that is Joseph Milton III. Joe Milton at Tennessee. He says it couldn't be anyone else. Milton gets a 3rd chance to become a star after misfiring at Michigan in 2020 and Tennessee in 2021 when Hendon Hooker became the guy. And whether he succeeds or fails, whether Tennessee becomes a potential Georgia or Alabama spoiler or an outright SEC favorite, we will know why. If Joe Milton still takes too many sacks, toes the wrong side of the line between patience and slow decision-making, he'll probably end the year on the bench behind the 5-star Nico Iamaleava. But if he's firing quickly to Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, Ramel Keaton, fully harnesses the explosiveness of Josh Heupel's offense and his own arm, he's almost certainly got the strongest arm in college football. Then the sky is the limit for Tennessee. Forget spoiler talk. Put them in the national title conversation. No pressure, Joe Milton. Again, that's from Bill Connolly. I like that pick. And look, right, wrong, or indifferent, if Joe Milton is special this year, then Tennessee is in the college football playoff conversation. Not even the hunt. They're in the conversation. Again, if you want to go read the whole list, ESPN.com, Bill Connolly, 25 most important players in the college football playoff race for 2023. Go check that out. But I agree with a lot of those names on there. All right, coming up next, we're going to run through a couple of other college football notes, and then we will go around the conference and get you caught up on all the latest goings on around at SEC fall camps. This is a Locked On SEC. All right, I want to take a second to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. And look, when we talk about eBay Motors, it is the place that you need to go, just like with your college football team. You want a championship team on the field, you want a championship feeling with your car, and you got to make sure that every part is just right. Every piece of your team is just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, you want to head over to eBay Motors. They've got that eBay guaranteed fit, so you can be sure that every part you need fits just right for your vehicle the first time around. You go to their website, you go to the My Garage section, you add your car, and then you look for the green check for any part you're looking for. That will let you know that part is going to fit your vehicle or your money back. It's just like in sports, confidence. It's the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be back in the game in no time. Find the parts you need. After all, it is easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So go get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. ebaymotors.com. All right, run along here, Locked On SEC. We got plenty to jump into, so we can't waste any time. We got to dive right into it. Let's do it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch! Around the conference.
All right, we've been talking about the college football playoff. The season kicks off in just over 2 weeks, and the college football playoff selection committee, they're going to be ranking teams come late October, and they revealed their dates for the revealing shows of their selection committee releasing their rankings. We're going to start on Halloween night, Tuesday, October 31st, and then a week later, November 7th, November 14th, so on and so forth. And then, of course, Sunday, December 3rd will be the selection day where we'll find out the 4 teams that are going to the college football playoff. Not much to do with that list of names, but just wanted to make you guys aware that those are the dates, and Halloween will be the first edition of the official college football playoff rankings. I would expect Georgia's going to be in that list. Maybe Michigan or Ohio State's on that list. We'll see who else will be on that list come Halloween. All right, a few other notes. The Butkus Award released their preseason watch list for linebackers. The Big Ten leading all conferences with 12. The SEC would finish right behind them with 11 names on the list, but some names of note. Kari Coleman at Ole Miss, Edgerrin Cooper at A&M, Jamin Dumas-Johnson at Georgia, Small Munden at Georgia, Tyron Hopper at Mizzou, Deontay Lawson at Alabama, Chris Paul Jr. at Arkansas, Trevin Wallace at Kentucky, Nathaniel Watson at Mississippi State, and then the 2 LSU guys, Harold Perkins Jr. and Omar Spates. Good list of names there, some good linebackers across the SEC. College game day, going to look a little bit different this year. For those of you who didn't follow, Chris Bear-Felica left this offseason, left ESPN for Fox Sports. So ESPN looking for a gambling angle. They're going to go with Stanford Steve, longtime contributor alongside Scott Van Pelt, doing the Bad Beats segment. Stanford Steve going to slide right in there on the show alongside Reese Davis, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee. So look forward to seeing Stanford Steve. He'll bring his Steve's Six-Pack, a segment where he's going to share his top bets of the week, and join College Football Live every Friday from on site wherever College game day is. So easy transition there. You lose Chris the Bear Felica, you slide in Stanford Steve. Derek Mason, we saw him at SEC Media Days. There was rumblings that he was joining the SEC Network crew this week, becoming official with the announcement that Derek Mason going to join the SEC Network with Dave Neal. He tweeted out, "I'm truly excited to be part of the SEC Network. Dave Neal, Taylor Beth Davis are gifted broadcast personalities who will mentor this veteran coach in his new digs. Coming soon this fall, Saturdays near you, all gas, no breaks." So probably going to be those early games on Saturday, if I had to guess, like those 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. Mason, of course, was the head coach at Vanderbilt from 2014 through 2020. All right, a few other notes going on around fall camp. Over at Tennessee, Vols center Cooper Mays missed a few preseason practices, but Josh Heupel said he's optimistic the lineman will be good to go for week 1. He said this week Coop had a minor procedure. He'll be back. He'll be healthy as we get closer to kickoff. Anticipate that being a couple of week kind of deal. Also, Josh Heupel gushing on wide receiver Dante Thornton, saying he's got the ability to play multiple positions, I think, for us this year. We probably have a little bit more mobility there. Guys can do multiple things within the offense. than probably how we've played them the first couple of years that I've been here. He did say, I think the rotation is going to be a little fluid with all these guys. Some of our young guys continue to grow and make real strides, like Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb. So Tennessee very deep at receiver. We should see a bevy of receivers in the coming weeks. Over at LSU, Jaden Daniels, we talked about being one of those guys. Can he take that big leap forward? Offense coordinator Mike Denbrock talking with the media this week. He said year 2 for Jaden allows him to have a comfort level from a knowledge standpoint of the offense and a personnel standpoint with all the other players where he feels like he could let it rip a little bit more. We encourage him to do that more and more. He said he comes to better his craft every single day. There's not a time where he doesn't have his complete attention on getting better at what he's doing on the practice field. So see what Jaden Daniels can do there. Over at Georgia, Mike Bobo, of course, taking over the offense at Georgia once again. He met with reporters on Thursday. Said after he parted ways at Auburn that he had other opportunities. He said, I wanted to go somewhere where I could continue learning as a coach. Those guys on the 2022 Georgia staff took me in, and it was very, very positive. And he went on to say, as a play caller, it's about the players, not the plays called. If a player has a unique ability to make plays, we got to design plays as a staff to get him touches. So Bubba's going to be working with the best talent he's had just about any stop here. So it'll be fun to see what he does there at Georgia. Meanwhile, over at Arkansas, they held their 6th fall football practice on Thursday morning. First team offense running very efficiently to the point where the defense was kind of getting beat. DC Travis Williams having words with his unit saying, guys, what are we doing? Get this together. KJ Jefferson found Luke Haas and Andrew Armstrong for nice gains. Haas was the first-string tight end and continues to impress. True freshman making a case to be a starter against Western Carolina here in a couple weeks. Also, Isaiah Sategna and Bryce Stevens had some impressive catches, according to reports. Sategna reportedly appears to have the upper hand as being the starter in the slot, so we'll keep an eye on that. Over at Vanderbilt, they avoided disaster this week when sophomore starting edge defender Darren Agu left an apparent injury to his right arm that left him doubled over in pain and got carted off. 24/7 Sports saying that he suffered a dislocated elbow, underwent testing that included an X-ray and an MRI. And on Tuesday, Clark Lee said he'll be back. Good news is there was no further damage, so it's just a matter of letting the swelling go down, getting to the point where he's comfortable with it. He'll probably have to wear a brace, but there's no reason to think that he's counted out from anything we'll do as a team. It'll be a few days. He projects as one of Vanderbilt's top pass rushers this season. Also at Vanderbilt, trying to build some depth in the defensive back category. They're moving freshman wideout Davion Walker over to DB. He practiced as a corner for the first time this week. OC Joey Lynch said the emergence of some true freshman receivers like Junior Sherrill and London Humphreys helped them make the decision. It was like we're too deep at receiver with Will Shepard and company, so they moved Walker over to DB. B.J. Anderson, Trudell Berry, Martell Height, and Tyson Russell continue to fight for the starting 2 DB spots. Over Kentucky, Liam Cohen helped recruit running back Ramon Jefferson to Maine back in 2017, and now he's reunited with him once again at Kentucky. Jefferson came to Kentucky last year and tore his ACL in his right knee in the season opener, so he missed all of last season. The start of preseason practice has marked Jefferson's return to the field, but he's been wearing a red no-contact jersey. Vanderbilt transfer Ray Davis, of course, is coming in, expects to be the starter. Juton McClain is in the mix as well, but Ramon Jefferson could figure into this. He's wearing that number 26 jersey that Benny Snell once wore. Over at Florida, they held their first scrimmage of fall camp Thursday afternoon at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Some takeaways, according to 24/7 Sports, linebacker Shamar James and corner Jason Marshall, as well as edge Scooby Williams, were all in non-contact jerseys. Of course, Shamar James suffered that knee injury in practice last week. Jones is dealing with a lower leg injury. Florida offensive guard Micah Mazuka returned to practice as a full participant on Wednesday, appeared to be a full participant in Thursday's scrimmage. And DB Jaden Hill missed Thursday's scrimmage due to an illness, according to multiple reports. Now, Kyle Whittingham, the Utah head coach, keeping it real close to the vest if his quarterback Cam Rising is going to be ready for that season opener game against the Gators in 3 weeks. He said this week that if Rising is not 100%, then they're going to have some decisions to make as far as who will play quarterback in that game. So that is something worth keeping an eye on. Over at Texas A&M, starting quarterback has not been named yet, but according to Olin Buchanan of Texags, he says, based on past performance, A&M football coach Jimbo Fisher will announce a starting quarterback in about 2 weeks. Last season, he announced Haynes King as the starter on August 27th. The year prior, he made the announcement on August 25th. So somewhere in that 2-week range, he'll announce a starter. And the bet is it'll be sophomore Connor Wegman. Now, Max Johnson, very talented, very experienced, started games at LSU. And Bobby Petrino this past week praised Max Johnson's ability to throw the ball downfield. But when he talked about Connor Wegman, he said Wegman has a quick release and can get the ball out accurately and fast. And that is what this team needs. With all their offensive line issues they had last year getting sacked, they need the ball to get out accurately and quick, and that's what Connor Wegman brings. So that will be something to keep an eye on. In recruiting news, LSU got some good news on Thursday. They picked up 4-star running back Caden Durham from Duncanville, Texas, the number 95 prospect in the country. They couldn't make it a twofer, though. They were hoping to get his high school teammate and Colin Simmons, but Colin Simmons went with the Texas Longhorns. And why do we mention that? Well, he's committing to Texas. He's going to be playing in the SEC starting next year when he gets on campus. So Colin Simmons, 6'3", 225 pounds, the number 8 prospect in college football. He's going to play for the Texas Longhorns. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, there you have it. It is the latest going on around at fall camp. Coming up next, our segment talking all things Kentucky football with Nick Roush. That's coming your way next. It's always fun to catch up with our buddy Nick Roush of KSR, Kentucky Sports Radio, covering the Kentucky Wildcats. What's up, man?
How we doing? my voice, it doesn't, I don't normally sound like this. I apologize to your listeners. It's a long week.
Yeah.
And it goes.
Yeah, and alcohol may have had an effect on his voice as well.
You know, maybe a little.
Let's jump into it. The Kentucky was here earlier this week. I keep saying I think Kentucky's one of those sneaky teams this year in the SEC that could, if things fall their way, I like the roster, man. I like what they've done. I like the addition of Devin Leary, Ray Davis, right, the running back. The offensive line, I feel like they've retooled it a little bit. Give me your thoughts on this Kentucky team.
I mean, really, a lot of it does come down to that offensive line, and that's not the sexiest talk. Like a year ago, we're here like, is Will Levis actually good? Like that was a whole week of just Will Levis talk.
Right.
And now you're at a point where I think everybody's in agreement that, Devin Leary, quality quarterback, but can he stay healthy? And their line of thinking, their kind of talking points are, these were freak injuries, but we still have to do whatever it takes to protect our greatest asset. And that started by getting 2 tackles in the transfer portal. They got a 3-year starter from Northern Illinois at left tackle, Marcus Cox, and then a guy by the name of Cortland Ford, who started as a redshirt freshman at USC before injuries kind of added up on him, and he slid down the depth chart. So that's it right there. Like, can you protect Devin Leary? Because Devin Leary is an accurate passer that can get the ball to his receivers efficiently. And this is a very good group of receivers. That Kentucky signed 2 top 300 prospects. One of them was a local kid, Dane Key. The other one was a local kid here from Nashville, Barryon Brown, who was a top 100 guy. Are they going to be good? They come in as freshmen. They were great. They exceeded expectations. Now you got to have a guy that can get him the ball. They got a guy that can get him the ball. Just got to keep him on his feet. That's all it is. If you can keep him on his feet, the ceiling is pretty high, I think, for this Kentucky football team.
It was interesting. You had Wan'Dale Robinson, and he blew up, and everybody loved him. And then you bring in Tavion Robinson last year. And I don't know, maybe it's just because they both have the same last name. Everybody kind of expected, he's going to be Wan'Dale. And he wasn't. He had good moments, but it was kind of an inconsistent up and down kind of season. I wasn't surprised to see he was coming back, but did you think he would move on at all, or were you expecting him to come back?
How do I put this nicely? He clearly had a disagreement with Coach Rich, and I don't know how involved he was at the end of the season at all. Like, in the spring, he publicly had a mea culpa. Like, I quit on my team. Like, I can't, but that was immature. Like, I've got to be better than that. And so I think from a talent standpoint, yes, he can be an impact playmaker in the slot. Not a Wandale Robinson, but he can be a pretty damn good wide receiver in return, man. It's just a matter of making sure that when adversity hits, you don't quit, right?
Yeah.
Like when it hits the fan, you got to persevere. And he did not do that last year, and now it's a prove-it year for him.
Yeah. Look, they got a ton of weapons for Leary to get the ball too. They lose Chris Rodriguez. We mentioned it. You bring in Ray Davis, who was a top 5 rusher in the SEC last year at Vanderbilt. Utah McLean's a guy who's got a lot of potential. It seemed like last year, though, those couple games where they didn't have Chris Rodriguez, it was glaring.
Yeah.
Can they get that run game back?
The part for me that I'm trying to rack my brain with is because Ray Davis is a quality running back.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of only 4,000-yard rushers last year, and he did it at Vanderbilt. Like, they've only had 10 in their history ever. And I think Kentucky had one in 5 out of the last 7 years. So he's a good player. But part of Benny Snell and Chris Rodriguez were only part of that successful equation. The other part was up front, and these guys, I mean, especially the guys they brought in, seem to be more pass pro guys than we're going to maul you, get north and south. And the way that I flat out asked Mark Stoops, it's like, are you comfortable being a team that throws it more because that's your strength? And he's like, we're going to throw it more, but we can't abandon the run game. And the Rams' philosophy, what Liam Cohen runs, the stuff he does, is all predicated on play action, and it's running to set up the pass. So even if it's not like, they might have to eat some runs, right? Like just to do their passing stuff. But like, there's going to be a few games where Ray Davis has 130 yards like he did against Kentucky a year ago.
Right. No, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the run game. Defensively, some big dogs are back. We saw J.J. Weaver had him on the show, and obviously Oxendine on the defensive line. Can this defense take a little step forward this year? Because I felt like there were times last year where the Tennessee game.
Yeah.
It was just
complete
It
nightmare.
was not good,
Right. Well, you saw J.J. Weaver. He put on 25 pounds.
Yeah.
255-pound edge. I put on 25 pounds in college. It did not look like that, right? So up front, the front seven, the trenches, it's as big and as talented and as deep as I've ever seen. Deion Walker, he'll be here next year, most likely, if all goes according to plan. And that dude looks like, and now I've lost his mind, the guy from Georgia, the big
Jordan Davis.
I mean, he's 6'6", 330 and runs, wears receiver cleats. Wow. And does receiver drills to work on his footwork. Like, he is a freak. They have some freaks in there. But there are two questions. And one is inside linebacker. There's two quote-unquote new starters, but they started half the season last year because linebackers get hurt in the SEC, right?
Yeah.
Do they have enough behind them? Because one of them is probably going to have to miss some games. Is it be a shoulder, ankle, whatever? And then the biggest question mark is cornerbacks, because Kentucky has had a very sneakily good pass defense. If you look just year by year, passing yards per game, they've been great. In 2019, they were 9th in the nation, tops in the SEC. They dropped to 9th in the SEC the following year when they had to replace 2 new quarterbacks. They got to do that again this year. They brought in portal guys. They have a couple that have some experience there, and it's just, don't be a liability.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and get 5 interceptions, right? You don't have to be Mr. Lockdown. But like, whoever they roll out there, it can be one of 4 or 5 guys. Don't be a liability. They've got some safeties that can help cover stuff up, but the corner's ability to develop, come along like that's really the only spot where you could say, if this gets sideways, it's the cornerbacks, right? Yeah. Like, if Kentucky's defense doesn't meet expectations, it's clearly on the cornerback. So they've got to be able to bring it on day one.
I love how the schedule sets up because, look, it's Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron. There's not going to be, there's going to be a few empty seats at Kroger Field for some of those games.
Well, and the best part is everybody shows up the first one, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while. You want to go to the parking lot, get some cold beer, maybe some hams with Sam Pittman. But they need some of this extra runway. Like Devin Leary needs to get live reps. I mean, it's part of it just to get back on the football field, but that part of the schedule is nice. And then your first actual SEC road test, I mean, quote unquote, is Vanderbilt. And I'm bullish on Vanderbilt. Like, I think they can be good if AJ Swan is talented, but they've got some momentum. They got some belief. They remind me a lot of Stoops early on.
Yeah.
Renovations like timed up similarly, but having that, to go back to Kentucky, having just that time to figure yourself out is so crucial, so important. You just got to stay healthy through that, right? Like, you got to be able to survive through it, because a couple of years ago, they're playing Eastern Michigan. You think everything's going to go well, and then Terry Wilson goes and blows his knee out. And then if Devin Leary ain't on his feet, there ain't a whole lot behind him you can lean on to win you some ball games.
That's saying something, because, what they had behind him or behind Levis last year was rough. I was penciling in wins those first 4 games, but I guess at Vandy, we know what happened last year. Last year to Vandy, so it's like you can't afford that to happen again.
Right.
But let's just assume they win that one. They're 4-0.
Yep.
That Florida game on September 30th. I mean, that's big.
Yeah. Well, and especially for the Kentucky football fan base that has had that monkey on our back forever, and now it's the script has kind of been flipped.
Yeah.
The good thing is there's not any of that in the back of the team's mind. Like, they're confident they're going to beat Florida, because that's what they do. Like, that's what they've done now. They're at that point. So being able to deliver that game, like they can very much do that. Like, that is very much on the table. And then, like, you can go to Georgia 5-0.
Yeah.
That's the schedule, right?
Yeah,
I think I've read it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 1,
So
2, 3,
yeah,
4, 5.
but even 5-1, you can hold serve and have a top 25 matchup when Tennessee comes to town. So the schedule's nice. It's just, how healthy can you stay for that final? Because it does get challenging at the end. You don't get the SoCon Saturday built in.
No, you're right. Let's say they lose to Georgia. You're 5-1. You beat Missouri. You're 6-1. That next stretch of Tennessee at Mississippi State, Alabama at South Carolina, at Louisville.
I mean, there's no days off.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no days off. And the one that's sneaky might be one of the most difficult at Mississippi State, because I haven't won there since 2008. It's
a big rivalry game.
but this will probably be the last time. I mean, it'll be the last time they're cross-divisional foes technically in this new format we're going to be getting into with Texas and Oklahoma there. But
my wife went to Kentucky. She hates that. Like, she's like, why do we have to keep playing Mississippi State
every year?
They're not a rival. Like,
stop trying to make it a thing.
I try to explain it. I'm like, look, you were just the ones left over. Like, they were preserving all these historic rivalries, and it's like, I guess put them together.
Yeah. You two go play.
What do you guys got going up at KSR leading up to the season?
Tons of stuff, especially we've cranked up our YouTube efforts. We're going to have some position previews rolling out. Tons of stuff from SEC Media Days.
Oh, wait, YouTube. So do we have to see your face?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I've had to shave now, and it's been a whole thing. But we've really cranked that up over on and also just at KentuckySportsRadio.com. So, and you follow me at Roush KSR on Twitter. It's a good time. We're a good hang. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We like ball, but come on, we're here to make fart jokes.
You're a good follow. Nick Roush, always good to catch up, man. So thanks so much for the time.
That's been a pleasure.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Our thanks again to Nick Roush. Our thanks to you guys for making us your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen. Check out some of our other great podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network. And shout out to our everydayers coming back and checking us out every day. We'll talk to you guys on Monday with more reports from fall camp and getting into it, man. We're getting ever so closer to the kickoff of another SEC football season. I'm Chris Gordy. Thank you guys for watching, for listening, for downloading. Checking us out on YouTube as well. We'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.